What's going on, everybody? A month or two ago, I posted a video where I did this deep data dive into some vintage cars from the 1950s to see what grade appreciates in value the most. A common question I think we all have is, what grade should I buy? Because I want to buy the grade that's going to go up the most. But I'd never really seen any data about that. So what I did is I went through the PSA auction realized price for 10 different cards, one per year in the 1950s. 10 different players, 10 different price points. And I tracked the data over 3 years from 2019, well, I guess it was 4 years, because from 2019 to 2022. So 2019, 2020, 21, and 22. And what I found was from 2019 to 2022, the grades that went up in value the most were the highest grades. So the 9s went up more than the 8s, and the 8s went up more than the 7s, and the 7s went up more than the 6s. Now, I'm not just talking dollar amounts. I'm talking percentage. I'm going to review that information, that summary of that video here in just a second. But I had a lot of people say, wait a second, something's wrong here. You're only looking at the good times. You're only looking at the pandemic times. From 2019 to 2022, a lot of people were collecting again and things were going up in value at ridiculous amounts, which we all know. And people said, you need to look at normal times. How much did cards go up in value during years that weren't during the boom, that weren't during the pandemic, in years that the economy was pretty normal? So that's what I'm doing here. I went through from 2017, 2018 to 2019 to look at what was the change in values and what was the percentage change in values of these same 10 cards from 10 different years at 10 different price points, to see, can we tell what will happen to card values? Should I be buying 6s? Should I be buying 1s? Should I be buying 9s? So that's what I do here. Again, a lot of data, a lot of research, a lot of time went into this video to be able to share with you, what did prices do during normal times from 2017 to just before the pandemic hit. I, for one, was very surprised. Let me remind you, I have no agenda here. I am just as curious as anyone about this information. And I wait until the end and I look at it, and sometimes I'm lucky and it shows some sort of trend. And sometimes I just compiled a bunch of data that didn't really tell me much. This one seems to have told me something. Check out this video. Please let me know what you think. But I thought it was very interesting. All right, so just a quick review of the previous video. So these look at the price change percentage from 2019 to 2022 at each grade for each of these cards. So for example, that Whitey Ford 1953 in a PSA 1 went up 76.1% during that time. Now if we look though over to the right, what you'll see is the percentage increases on the 8s and 9s is really high. And what we found, or what I found from the data, just looking at it and checking it out, is the higher the grade, the bigger the percent increase. So if you look over at the 1s, you can see that from 2019 to 2022, cards went up about 100% in value. But if you look all the way over to the 9s, it was like 180% in value. And you see this pretty clear trend line. The higher the grade, the higher the percentage increase during that time from 2019 to 2022. So the question then became, is it always like this? Do the higher grades always go up by the most? And people said, check out normal times. So that's what I did. So now we're looking at 2017, 2018, and 2019. You'll see on your screen. So this is the average price of a 1950 Bob Feller in a PSA 1 in 2017 versus 2018 versus 2019. And then in a PSA 2. So if you look over on the right there, you'll see that is the total increase in value from 2017 to 2019. So the PSA 2, you'll see, went down about 7% from 2017 to 2019, but the PSA 3 went up by about 50%. So you look at that and you go, that's kind of random, right? Looks a little random so far. Now let's look at the 51 Bowman Warren Spahn. And looking over to the right, look at how much the 2 went up. The 2 went up by 200%, but the 8 went down by 6%. Now, the thing that catches my eye here is the lowest grades, the 2, the 3, and the 4 did really well. They went up by a lot. But the 5, the 7, and the 8 all went down. But the 6 went up. So again, now you're starting to see that looks interesting, that the lower grades did really well and the higher grades didn't seem to do quite as well. Let's see if that trend continues. So now we're looking at a 52 Topps Mini Minoso, his rookie card, by the way. And if you look, again, the 2s versus the 3s versus the 4s and the 5s and all the way down, the 2, 3, 4, and 5 did really well. Look at how much each of those went up from 2017 to 2019. The 6 was about flat. The 7 went down by 29%, but the 8 went up. But again, we see that the 2, 3, 4, 5 did really well. They went up quite a bit. Now, is this just for these first 2, 3 years, or does this trend continue? Well, let's keep looking. So we have 2017, 18, 19. This time it's the 53 Topps Whitey Ford card. Really cool card, in my opinion. And the one that jumps off the page here to me is that the 2 went up by almost 38%. The 1 was pretty much flat. The 3 was pretty much flat. 4 went down a little. 6 went down a little, but then the 7 and the 8 did okay. So again, here we go. Can we really take much out of this? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that the 2 went up a lot, and then the 7 and the 8 went up a lot, and the rest were, relatively flat. The next card that we were looking at was the 54 Ernie Banks. Again, I did all of this by hand with the help of Microsoft Excel. And what I've got here is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, the Ernie Banks did really well from 2017 to 2019. I mean, pretty much every grade went up. But the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 did the best. They absolutely did the best. I mean, they did really, really well. The 6, relatively flat. 7 and 8, that's nothing to sneeze at. So Ernie Banks shot up quite a bit during this time for some reason. Now 55 Topps, we went with the Willie Mays. The 1 went up over 200%. Now Willie Mays did really well during this time. Look at that. Every single grade went up over this 2-year stretch. And again, 2017 to 2019 is kind of normal times in card collecting. But the 1, the 2, and the 3 did the best. Well, the 8 did pretty well too. But 1, 2, 3, and 8 did the best. Now, again, you can look at the stock market. It was, it was doing okay during this time. It's normal time. Nothing crazy up or crazy down. Now, if you look closely, some of the cards from 2017 to 2018 went down a little over the 10 cards. Now, if we look here, the PSA 156 Ted Williams with a white back did the best. That was the best grade. But again, all of them did pretty well. So even during pre-COVID times, most of these cards in most grades are going up. A handful of them went down, but the overall trend is they're going up. Now, if we look at the 57 card, it is the Sandy Koufax. And look at the 345, did exceptionally well. And the 678 went up, but not like the 3, 4, and 5. And there wasn't enough data on the 1s and the 2s to pull numbers. So we're just using the data that we have. And again, the reason I'm using PSA here is because the number of cards graded by PSA and sold on the auction market is just way higher than any other company. So the 58 card is the Yogi Berra. Again, I wanted to have a little bit of a lower price point card in there as well. And we look here and you can see the 2 and the 3 and the 4 for the Berra are kind of flat/down. The 5 is pretty even. The 6 did well. The 9 did not do well. So when you look at all of these, the only one that's really did anything super significant would be the 6, went up almost 17%. The others are kind of flat-ish. And then the last card in the 1950s, in 1959, was the Bob Gibson. Tons and tons of Bob Gibsons graded and sold. So lots of data for this one. And the 1, look at the 1's up over 100% during this time. The 2, the 3, the 4, the 5 are also up quite a bit. Look at the 9. Look at the 8 and 9. Both of those are down, especially the 9. But from 1 to 7 did really well. So that's the data for each of the 10 cards. Again, 1 card per year during the 1950s and all grade levels from 1 to 9. So here's a quick overall summary. So again, I have the grades across the top from PSA 1 to 9. And along the left, I have each year and then the player of the card in question. And again, the overall percentage increase or decrease, in some cases, from PSA 1 to 9. And this is from, again, 2017 to 2019. And then at the bottom, I found the percentage increase or decrease average. So what did the average card do? So we have in like PSA 1, for example, I found the average of the averages to find the overall average. And you can see the average change of PSA 1s. Pretty good, 80%. Now, if we look along this line, though, what you'll see is you will see the average of the averages across all of the grades. And right off the bat, there's a pretty strong correlation. The higher the grade, there tends to be a lower increase in percentage. All the way to PSA 9, from 2017 to 2019, PSA 9s actually went down. So you look there on the left is the PSA 1s up about 80%. And then you look at the PSA 2s up about 50%. And then the PSA 3s up about 30%. And then about 20% for the 4s. And you can see it drops. Except for the PSA 8s. There's a little bit of a rebound. But in every other grade, from 2017 to 2019, the higher the grade, the more the card did not increase. So the lower grades did the best. Look at the trend there. The lower grades went up by the most. The higher grades went up by the least. The complete opposite of what happened during the post-COVID times when cards were going crazy. So in the last one, from 2019 to 2022, the higher the grade, the higher the percentage increase. So what does this mean? What does this tell us? Well, it's hard to know for sure. Is this a coincidence? Is this a trend that would continue? Here's my thought. When there is such a clear trend, it's not a couple of years did this or 2 years did this. I mean, it's a pretty direct correlation in this case that the lower grades went up the biggest percentage and the highest grades went up the smallest percentage during normal times. Now, we could have a lot of explanations as to why that might be. Maybe because money's tighter. People are buying the grades that they're more likely to afford. And during the pandemic, during the boom, when everybody is getting stimulus checks and everybody has money flowing and they're sitting around and they're not spending money on normal things and they have more money as disposable income, they're buying pretty expensive stuff. It could be a coincidence. I'm not trying to tell you that there's any for sure conclusions. All I'm doing is sharing the data that I compiled. To me, this seems to show that when times are good and money is plentiful, like we learned in the last video, that the expensive cards go up the most because people have lots of money to spend on things like cards. And when things are normal or things are tight and the stock market is fairly level, maybe it means that people are buying the more affordable cards because they want to have them, but they don't have the huge sums of money to be able to purchase the high-end stuff. Or maybe these are just a coincidence. Let me know your thoughts about this, because just like you, I'm trying to figure this stuff out, and I'm trying to make good purchases and good decisions as well. But this information to me is really, really interesting. Let me know what you think.